Chapter 4 just dropped for Bendy and the Ink Machine, and in it we slowly descend more and more into madness, after plummeting down into the depths of the studio. We begin our quest to rescue Boris. But what further mysteries lie in this dark studio? Well, I hope you're ready to change the way you think about Bendy and the Ink Machine, because I have some pretty interesting thoughts about what is going on. I brought along animator abitfrank as well, to help set the tone for this creepy, unnerving tale. This goes without saying, but definitely expect spoilers in this video. We're going to be combing through the chapter as we piece it all together. Still here? Awesome. Let's set the stage by going over some key areas. Chapter 4 starts off with Henry exploring the deepest parts of the studio. While wandering through the halls, we encounter a room full of inky scribblings on the wall. Someone, driven to the brink of insanity, filled this room with ramblings before ultimately leaving. That is, assuming they didn't become the inky blob on the desk. This room belongs to Grant Cohen, as the sign indicates in the hallway. Grant was in charge of keeping track of the finances for the studio, and it looks like working with Joey Drew drove him to insanity. Not long after this room, we are introduced to another interesting scene. We see a cast of inky figures laid out underneath a sign that reads, "He will set us free." This bizarre arrangement foreshadows a situation later in the chapter. Fast forwarding a bit, we encounter our first humanoid figure made of ink. This person seems hysterical and keeps asking, "When can we go home?" Immediately after this room, we are introduced to a huge cast of terrified, inky people who just stare at Henry as he wanders through the room. One can be found sobbing in the corner as well. Keep this image in mind because we're going to come back to it shortly.
Soon after all of this, we finally discover the main hub area for this chapter, after being teased about it in an earlier room with the introduction of a character named Bertram Piedmont. A sprawling underground carnival setup complete with games, a spooky roller coaster, and lots of adjacent rooms. Through this, we complete the remaining parts of the chapter and then ultimately face off against a mutant Boris, who we slay with the pipe. Which, mind you, was pretty flippin' sad.
Now that we've done a quick recap, it's time to break down some important things that took place and what they could mean in terms of the story. We're going to focus on 3 things in particular in this video. 1. The shocking reveal of Boris and Alice at the end of the chapter. 2. The ink people and the role they play in the studio. 3. Bendy's identity and the toxicity of the ink. So let's start off talking about how an Alice killed another Alice at the end of the chapter. Now it's pretty obvious that a lot of other Borises exist judging by chapter 3. And what happens there? Heck, even the Boris tied to the table in chapter 1 foreshadows this. It seems we have a divide in characters here, and multiple variants of both. We have those who are corrupt and those who seem pure. Something I find interesting is that it's almost like the ink is a poison for people. If we recall from chapter 3, the corrupt Alice referred to the ink as a buzzing, screaming well of voices. Those who were once pure can become corrupt when they interact with it, and from that point forward, they are forever a slave. Now, for the perfect Boris and perfect Alice we see rushing to our rescue. It's unknown whether or not they always existed deep within the studio, or if they are the results of many trials and errors that took place before Henry arrived. But there's a chance they materialized because Henry is present in the studio. The creator finally returned.
And that's a really interesting concept. We've seen tons of messaging scattered throughout the game about the creator being the one who will free everyone. Many times we always just assumed the people were kind of cultish and quite creepy in regards to Bendy and his ink demon powers. Since we're introduced to the idea of immortality through Joey Drew in earlier chapters, technically leaving one's body behind and becoming a living animation may let one live forever. Or at least that was the general premise we thought.
I do want to introduce another angle to that concept though. I believe Henry is the absolute creator, and he is the only one who can set anyone free, even Bendy. Let's swing over to the second point I brought up earlier to solidify that reasoning. The ink people. This is the first time we've encountered a person made of ink outside the crazed Sammy and the lurkers. And the story is both sad but enlightening. Like I mentioned earlier, the first one we encounter is frantically stressed out. He states, "He's going to find me. He always finds me. I just want to go home." He leads us to the powerful, sad visual of the room full of ink people. I think part of the reason everyone stares at you with empty eyes without saying anything could be 2 reasons. 1, you look just like them. Or 2, the creator, the absolute savior, had just stepped into the room.
We get a great understanding of the people in this room just from their sad demeanors. Joey Drew was not only a difficult and terrifying boss, but I imagine they had to work insanely long hours that drained them mentally. 60 to 80 hours a week would be common if an animation was in crunch time and needed to be done. This, of course, is prior to them becoming slaves to the ink. They can't ever go home because Bendy keeps them here. The person in the previous room said he always finds me. And that could mean that Bendy doesn't kill them, but merely brings them back to the bottom of the studio.
And beyond that, perhaps they were even reborn here if they do die. They can't escape because Bendy won't let them. Bendy won't let his dream die. Or should I say, Joey Drew won't let his dream die. And this takes us to the third point, Bendy's identity. I'm almost certain that Bendy is indeed Joey Drew. However, Bendy isn't as bloodthirsty as he seems. He's fueled by a dream that he cannot let go of. Joey Drew was obsessed with being rich, powerful, and booming with success, so much that it overcame him, and he was abusive to the workers he employed. With the introduction of the ink machine and the toxicity of the ink it developed, it didn't speed up the animation process at all. It cursed everyone instead. The Bendy that wanders the halls only has shreds of Joey's mentality still intact. And while we think Bendy wants to kill us, I don't think that's absolutely true. He invited you to the studio for a different reason. Henry is the creator. He designed the characters in the Bendy universe, and as the creator, he's the only person that can free everyone, including Joey Drew. I think this is why Bendy defends Henry from the Projectionist. It's sort of like a split personality, where Joey can only shine through in certain instances. At his core, Joey is a selfish person, but perhaps he still has some good in him. Or perhaps he is being selfish because he knows he can use Henry to free himself. However, he needs Henry to make it to the bottom of the studio. If Henry dies in the process, they may be forever cursed to wander these halls. But honestly, this is still the tip of the iceberg, because we haven't even touched on the introduction of Bertram, the schematics of the amusement park, what Henry actually looks like, and how this all fits into the lore of Bendy and the Ink Machine. However, I think that's better left for the next video. But now that we've dumped that on all of you, we'd of course love to hear your thoughts. What do you believe is going on in Chapter 4? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you like the creepy, quirky animation in this video, I highly recommend swinging over to abitfrank's channel on YouTube. She's worked on some videos behind the scenes on this channel too, especially when I first started out, which was a huge help. She has some pretty cool Tim Burton-esque videos, and if you enjoy the look and feel of Bendy, I'm sure you'll fit right into her dark tales. Just don't get lost wandering in the dark lands for too long. You can find a link to her channel at the end of this video and in the description below. And with that, thanks for tuning in to this inky nightmare. I'll be wrapping up my thoughts on the remainder of Chapter 4 here soon, but in the meantime, why don't you swing over to abitfrank's channel to appreciate some amazing animations. You won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching, guys and gals, and until my next video, cheers.